Richards trying to scoot in there alone. It pinballs to the crease.
Let's get it.
Oh my God! Here we go.
You're listening to the Street Bullies podcast with your hosts, Derek.
How you gonna get it, Bobby?
John. Matt Casey.
Unnecessary, but totally necessary.
And Cody.
What's not to love?
Happy Wednesday night and Thursday morning to most of you. This is the Street Bullies, back for another week of fun-filled action and talking about our favorite hockey team, everybody, the Philadelphia Flyers. I'm Derek.
Wow. What just happened to the hi, I'm Derek, so I can say, I'm John. What's going on, everybody? Don't do that to me.
It got boring.
Could be boring to our listeners in England. Welcome.
Tally-ho. It gets boring after how many weeks we've been doing this. I figured I'd mix it up. So it didn't work. I'll make a note of that.
I liked it.
Oh, thank you.
Nobody
Thank you,
cares.
Casey. I appreciate that. Casey's here to join us. Hoagie's here to join us. What's up, guys?
What's up?
How's it going?
It's definitely going. Definitely going somewhere.
Jeez,
Always
Wall.
laugh after that.
How's it going?
We've got really one major topic to discuss here tonight, and that's going to take place right after story time with John Gove. So, John, please grace our ears with this story that you have been drumming up here and telling us about.
All right. So I'm in the car with my whole family, me, my wife, my two kids, and Reagan, our 4-year-old, all of a sudden starts talking about school. She goes to pre-K, and typically she's got 2 teachers. I don't need to, say their names or anything. But she says to me, Daddy, I had a new teacher this week. I said, oh, you did? She goes, yeah, she was with Miss So-and-so and Miss So-and-so. I'm like, oh, wow, that's great. What was her name? Miss Squirt.
boy.
I was in the driver's seat shaking. I was like, what'd you say? She goes, Miss
Were you like-
Squirt. Miss
were you like-
Squirt.
Is she from Hershey?
It was like
Oh,
looking
God.
at her resume. Bojangles nightclub was one of her most recent jobs. I was like, get out of
Oh,
town.
God.
This woman is not Miss Squirt. It's her first name Tina.
It's either a very unfortunate first name or she's just messing with everybody.
Or just prolific? Just prolific.
True.
Right?
Could be.
Maybe she
True
found it.
story. when
Talent.
I was playing youth hockey, we would play in tournaments and stuff all over the tri-state area. And we used to play the Hershey Squirts, and we were like, oh, we gotta beat up on these poor bastards.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I'd like to
That-
think that I wasn't the only dad who had that reaction, though.
Oh, no way. Absolutely
Right?
not.
Hop on
Absolutely not.
Google. Miss Squirt.
I'd love to see what that search looks like.
Oh,
Oh,
boy.
God. Well, if we're going to talk about hockey tonight, there's, like I said, one thing really to discuss. A lot of news coming out about Claude Giroux, his potential destination here with the trade deadline coming up in the middle of March. Still a ways away, so I'm sure this will not be the end of this discussion. But what we have heard this past week on our affiliates here at Flyers High and Wide, they had Adrian Dater, a guy with Colorado Hockey Now, talking about what the return would look like from Colorado, and then a lot of rumors going around, and I mean, take it with a grain of salt. Colorado's the only team that Giroux would waive his no movement clause for. We'll get into all of that, but first, just to kind of get into this and really bear down on it, what are you making of all this chatter, John?
It's chatter. You know, I mean, listen, there's 5 weeks left until the trade deadline. The Philadelphia Flyers stink. We've got nothing else to talk about, you know? So I just think that this is what's going to be everywhere. You know, I mean, I do think that there is a link to Colorado. This guy, Adrian Dater, although I don't follow the Avalanche quite well, seems a lot. He seems pretty plugged in. It makes sense that Claude Giroux would waive his no trade clause for a team like Colorado, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But I don't really put much into it at this point. You know, I just think we're desperate for something to talk about, and this is the obvious story.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you make of all this then, Hoagie?
Just like John, I mean, it's chatter, but I mean, we've been talking about it for weeks before. I mean, not on the podcast, but I mean, the Twitterverse is going crazy. Everybody's going crazy. Where's she going to go? And I mean, it's even gone to as far as you know, we're seeing our new assistant GM Briere standing up at a Colorado game up in the press box. So like everybody's thinking it's going to happen, but who even knows what's going on? Because it sounds like, according to Giroux's press conference today, he hasn't talked to Chuck and said anything, which I find wild. With 5 weeks left, look at how bad this team is.
Can you paraphrase? Like, I didn't watch the press conference today. Like, what did he talk about? Like, what was it?
He said he hasn't gone to Chuck about the no movement clause or anything, or wanting to go to any teams yet. That's what I mainly took from it, because that's what I was looking for. I wanted to know if that type of information was going to come to light. I should have known better and known that it wouldn't, but that's just what I took. And there was some other stuff, I'm sure. I don't know, Hoagie, did you watch it?
Pride and wearing a Flyers jersey and all that junk.
Yeah, it was kind of tough to watch, because it would like cut out like every 15-30 seconds, and I was like,
I thought maybe it was like graphic or something that made it tough to watch. No,
you never know.
Come on, man. Let's get past this Miss Squirt song.
I can't. I set the tone.
Now, I mean, like you said, Casey, I guess let's go to you first here.
Thank you for that warm intro there.
How could I ever forget about the man that always spells out his name?
So, look, I think, you know, where you could go with where there's smoke, there's fire. There's certainly a lot of links to the Colorado aspect, but like, I think a lot of this could be posturing, at least trying to set the market and create a little bit of urgency as well among teams. We were talking about this arguably in the preseason, and we never thought we'd be this far out and it would come to fruition this far. But, you know, I also think that Giroux is going to, you know, warrant a pretty strong return. And 5 weeks out of the trade deadline, I still don't think you're going to get that. You know, there's a bunch of teams, the teams that are going to benefit the most from Giroux and the teams that we're going to get the most return from are going to be a couple of those like fringe wild card / into
Agreed.
You know, the top three teams. And the Eastern Conference is arguably pretty solidified. And I think we can all agree we don't want Claude to go to an Eastern Conference team just from a pure like pride standpoint. But
especially a Metro team.
Yeah, exactly. Which are like the two of the teams I wrote down. But you know, I think the reality is on the Western Conference, like there's like a 3-point swing just to get into the wild card. Like that's intense there. And I don't think he's going to want to waive his no trade clause to go to a team who might not make the playoffs. So he's going to want to get in the upper side of that for sure. But it's like, how do you find that balance of the team that's going to give the most return and somebody that Claude actually has a shot to win at?
Well, and can I just say, you know, I think a lot of people, when they talk about this Colorado return, right, they're like, well, Alex Newhook and all this. Colorado, you'll probably get the worst return from because they're probably the team that needs him the least. Like adding a Claude Giroux to that team is a luxury. It's not a necessity. They're going to go, yeah, you want this person, you want this. Yeah, okay, we'll give you this and this, and you can either take it or leave it.
Yep.
Oh, of course. They're going to play it because they know they have a good enough team at this point. Like they're top to bottom. They're one of the most complete teams in the league. So they think that they're going to be holding the cards and they're going to be like, you should give us Giroux and here's why. Like, no, it's not how this is supposed to work at all.
But
there
that's
are
how it
going
will
to be
work with Colorado.
exactly like this is supposed to work out. Much to your point earlier, like these fringe teams that are going to be looking to make that push to get into a top seed, to get into the playoffs altogether, are going to be the ones that are going to pony up the most in a return. Now, are they the ones that Giroux is going to want to move his or waive his no movement clause? That's the big question for me. What type of incentive is there to do so for a team that you don't really know? You know, how much power, I guess, and I'll go you, John, first. How much power does Giroux really hold in terms of the exact team that he does want to go to?
Well, listen, I mean, I'm sure any team he waives his no trade for has a better chance of winning the Stanley Cup than the Philadelphia Flyers, right? I mean, like,
Not Montreal, smart ass.
I feel like the two other teams that I saw, and I'm assuming you guys saw the same thing, because I mean, Hoagie probably dropped it in the group chats. The only reason I probably saw it was that Minnesota and St. Louis were reported to be two other teams he would waive his no trade for.
Mm-hmm.
They're both pretty darn good teams, right? With a guy like Claude Giroux should take a deep postseason run, right? I think there are enough teams that Claude would be comfortable with joining. You know, those fringe teams, right? The reason they go out and get a Claude Giroux is to go past the fringe. If he can't help them get past the fringe, then he's failed them, right? Then that trade didn't work out.
Yep. What are you thinking about that, Hoagie?
I mean, he's definitely going to go to a team. G's going to want to go to a team that's already there, solidified, going to the playoffs, like we've said. I mean, to John's point, where it's a fringe team that needs to get past that next step, that next hump, he's the guy that's going to help you. I mean, like we said, you go to a Colorado, he's going to be the 5th, 6th best player on that team, which is kind of crazy. To think Claude Giroux, your number 5, number 6 best guy on the team, because he's been lighting it up for 12 years with the Flyers. So it'll be weird, but I think if you slots into a lineup where he's the top 3, top 4 on a team, he's definitely going to push that team to the next level and help him win some games, and important games at that, for playoffs.
Sure. How about you, Casey?
Yeah, with those two teams John just mentioned, St. Louis and Minnesota. St. Louis, I think, from a fit standpoint, makes a ton of sense. He knows some of the players on there, specifically Shen and is Berube still coaching?
Yeah, he just got another extension.
Yeah. So, you have that connection there, which I think would be, welcome. He knows what he's getting into with Berube. St. Louis has obviously gone the distance, not, in the last couple of years, but, they've gone the distance. They know how to win. So I think that's an interesting one. I think the downside is, like, if I'm reading their cap right, they have like $20,000 in cap space right now.
Right.
And so, like, maybe that's good for the Flyers. Maybe you actually have to move some assets, but at what point is a team like St. Louis, who's already pretty solidified in there? I mean, they have 61 points. I mean, it's still pretty tight, but they're pretty solidified in there. Are they going to be wanting to give up a bulk of it? Maybe they will. Maybe that is the perfect fit, that it's like, okay, they're hanging on to that 3rd spot in their division. Can they go? I think with Minnesota, you get the familiarity that Chuck has with the Minnesota organization, and so there may be some stuff there. I would kind of rather see him go to Minnesota, because I think the return's going to get a little bit better, because Minnesota's never done anything. Like, they've never gone deep into the playoffs. So, I mean, from those two specifically, if we stick with the Western, the team that I'm looking at is Nashville. They have cap space. We have familiarity with them. Just from a trading standpoint, I don't think we have any active players, because Myers isn't really playing there. Right. So I think, and Nashville is the top wild card spot by 5 points right now. So I think that's one to take a look at. That maybe Nashville is going to take that sort of core that they have with Forsberg and give it one more shot, and maybe Giroux can give it a run.
Sure. I mean, we want to talk about teams. We want to talk about returns. I mean, that's the big thing that I wanted to look at in terms of a potential Claude Giroux deal, because what I And I'm sure what most people are looking at is what this team can get and the more bang for their buck, obviously. Now, I'm going to throw a team out here, and I know you guys are going to hate this, but given the amount of cap space, given the absolute ridiculous depth of their prospect pool, how comfortable are you discussing a potential trade between the Flyers and the Rangers for Claude Giroux?
I hate
Nope.
You hate it. You hate
No
it.
shot.
But
No
think
way.
about the depth of their system right now.
Don't care.
You don't care?
No.
You
I got
can't
too
tell me
many
from a
Ranger
business.
buddies. I got too many Ranger buddies.
It doesn't matter. You can't tell me from a business standpoint that something like that doesn't intrigue you in the slightest.
I think from a business standpoint, it does. Sorry, Hoagie, I didn't want to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Go ahead, Casey.
I think from a business standpoint, yeah, we might be able to get a pretty good return from the Rangers. I think from a personal standpoint with Claude, he's moving 99 miles away from where his home is. And he doesn't have to pick up and move his whole family across the country. I think from a morale standpoint and a pride standpoint, it would absolutely kill me. And it would tear my freaking soul out. But from Claude's standpoint, Rangers are good, man. They're in the playoffs. They're good. They're probably going to go on a run.
Yeah.
You have to wonder though if the Flyers need to consider though who they trade him to for, like a Pittsburgh or a New York or things like that, because there is this idea with the fan base where we're already pissed off at the organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is making one of our enemies better going to piss off this organization even more, especially if they win the cup?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
everything's
going to piss this organization off.
Right. No, I know. But I just think that there are a few teams out there that the Flyer, unless it was just you could not turn it down, I just feel like they're teams that the Flyers just ignore. They're like, no, sorry, this can't happen.
Mm-hmm.
What's the Rangers center? What's the Rangers forward depth right now? I mean, where would he fit into this team?
Oh, damn well he'd probably be a second line guy. I can't tell you offhand what their depth looks like, but I know we all know his skill set. We all know what he's capable of. I would definitely foresee him probably playing wing on the second line.
I think they're left wingers.
Sorry, go ahead.
No,
you go ahead.
Just looking at I'm just looking at positionally. Their left wingers include Panarin, Lafreniere, Kreider, Dryden Hunt, and Sammy Blaze. Blaze.
I mean, at this point, he's better than Lafreniere, but do you want to bump that former number 1 overall pick down to the third line? Or can he play the other way?
Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, absolutely realistic. I think it's a realistic move. And, I mean, in terms of who we get back, what do you think? I mean, are we looking – they've got a plethora of defensive talent when it comes to their prospect pool. I have one name in mind, but I want to see what you guys think. So, Hoagie, you go ahead. Who do you think that they can snag from the Rangers?
I'm just going to say this because it'll piss off one of my buddies that's a Rangers fan. I'm taking Fox. Screw it.
Yeah,
I know it won't happen.
Yeah.
I know it won't happen, but screw it. I feel like you're just going to get onesies, twosies, and picks from the Rangers. They're not going to give up players.
Onesies like the zip up pajamas?
Yeah,
John, you send enough of them my way, I'll take that deal.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on if they've got feet or not.
Gotta have feet.
Well, the way we've been drafting, none of our picks have feet, apparently.
What do you think, Matt Casey? If you have any names in mind here.
I don't have any set. I don't know the Rangers farm system all that well, or prospect system, so I can't give a educated name at this point. The only thing I'll say is that given the fact it's trading not only within the Eastern Conference but also within the division, you better jack that price up something vicious. And the Rangers, it sounds like they have the picks. They may have the prospects. I don't necessarily want like a fourth line guy or a fringe third line guy on the Rangers right now. I'd rather get somebody that we can nurture and help grow. But I don't have a set name.
John, it looks like you've been studying intently here, so you've got to have a name or two.
Yep. I want Braden Schneider, I want Brennan Othman and a first-round pick.
Othman was on my list too.
And maybe a mid-round pick too. But if you're going to trade them to the Rangers, I want your top 2-3 prospects and your first-round pick. I want you to bleed.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Why not?
That's the thing. It's like if you're, we're claiming that, hey, we're sending Giroux is going to hurt our team more. It's like, no, down there 2 years from now, this trade could hurt the Rangers more and help us. And like, that's the reason why you do it if the price is big enough.
And historically, rentals don't always pan out, like
No.
How many times do you see these trades going? It's like, well, they ended up not making that big of a deal.
Like Michael Rothel with Washington.
I'll tell you the one
on everyone's tongue.
I'll tell you the one name that I'm looking at, risk involved and all. I want Vitaly Kravtsov. I think he could be a real difference maker for this team for years to come if they can get him over here to North America. Now he's on loan in the KHL right now, but I think if he's, and this is a big question mark considering the development of the current Flyers prospects, if he can be developed properly, we could have that scoring winger that could absolutely wreak havoc for years to come. And a deal for Giroux should center around Kravtsov. Now, there should be some type of, implementations to it so that way you can assure that he does come over. If he doesn't, you get compensated for it. Like, a conditional pick, a third-round pick. If he comes over, or a second-round pick. If he comes over, it's a third or fourth or something like that. Whatever. That's why GMs have their jobs and I've got mine. But absolutely would look to try to pry Kravtsov from the Rangers' grasps in a deal for Giroux.
I mean, that'd be good pickings.
Right?
John's not about it.
But how realistic is it, though?
Not. I really, I appreciate the conversation, but I just don't see that. I just don't see the Flyers dealing with the Rangers.
Well, you're right. But that's why we have these types of discussions, though, because, think about it. We want to try to maximize the value for this guy. I don't know what, Drury thinks of Giroux. I don't know what Guerin thinks of Giroux. Like, I don't.
Right.
But I know what I think of Giroux, and I know what we all think of Giroux. He's a great player, So we want to make sure we get the best deal out there.
Now, if we're going off of most likely unrealistic destinations, one that intrigues me because they are kind of a wild card team. They're not going to be one of your top 3 in the division. But if we're going off of could be in the playoffs with a guy like Giroux, could potentially make some noise and has a strong prospect pool, the LA Kings.
My number one team.
So I had the dark horse in the West. I had the Kings and Anaheim both in there of okay, these guys are both on the fringe. You're going to get some solid return in there, but there's no guarantee that's where you have to wait to see where teams are in 4 weeks and make that last week deal.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But either of those teams, especially the Kings, just because I'm a little bit more familiar with the prospects there, you could really bring in a guy who then you could say, oh, he's on the top of our prospect list.
Yep.
Right.
Well, they've got 3 names right off the bat that you could probably rattle off. That would be a top prospect for the Flyers. You got Velarde, Kupari. You've got Alex Turcotte.
Turcotte's a guy that I would really push for.
Yeah, I'd be happy with Velarde, but I would definitely want Turcotte over Velarde.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you thinking, Hoagie?
You're just speaking a different language half these prospects. I have no freaking clue. I'm sorry.
I'm with you, Hoagie. You can throw an off, a Russian name out there. Yeah. Furov is really having a year for him, isn't he?
That's holy crap. Where are you guys pulling these things from?
Elite prospects, man. Anybody can look at that website.
Sure you can, but I don't know who they are.
So let's just speak in generalities then real quick. So we're talking prospects. We're talking young guys that, are still developing. But how young do we want these prospects to be? Do we want 2021 first-round picks, 2020 first-round picks? Or are we looking at, prospects that have had some time to develop, whether it's, juniors, NCAA, overseas, Do we want someone who's going to make more of an immediate impact, given the last press conference we saw with Chuck Fletcher and Dave Scott saying they think that they can compete within the next couple of years? I'll go back to you, Hoagie, since you thought we were speaking a foreign language while talking about prospects.
I mean, I'd rather like an NHL ready prospect that's top end talent ready. You need someone to replace Giroux. I mean, I know a prospect's not going to do that right away, but you got to look further down the line as well. And I mean, our prospects aren't really working out right now, so let's bring someone in that's going to be ready to fire and slide into the lineup. I mean, the season's on the crap, so slide them into the last month or two of games and see what we got.
Sure. What are you thinking, Matt Casey?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't want a prospect from last year, even if it's a first-round pick. I just think they haven't had enough time in the oven to bake yet. So I would say if we're putting a year, an expiration date, so to speak, on there, or a best buy date, and I'd put the 2021 or no, what's that? The 1920 draft as the one that I would kind of look to say, okay, who's made a bit of a name for themselves, who's about to break through, and let's try to figure that one out. You can go back a little bit further if you wanted to, but like I'd be hesitant in jumping on some really young prospects. We could have some really young prospects and not even know it. Like I have no idea at this point. So I'm not totally opposed to draft capital. I'm not opposed to getting more picks and, whether it be this year or next year and beyond, and turning that into actual player capital and trying to turn this thing around through that.
Sure. All right, John.
I mean, that's kind of where my head is too, because if you just listen to Dave Scott, right, he doesn't want to rebuild, right? In his mind, whether or not you agree with it, he wants to field or ice a competitor next year. To me, the best way to do that is to get draft capital, like Casey said, right? You get as many draft picks as you can, and hopefully you can turn those into trade chips, right? That's the way I think that the Flyers are going to approach this. Maybe they can get somebody that they can plug into the lineup right away, whether that be a prospect or an already NHL guy. If we're talking about my preference of prospect, I would like somebody who has had at least some AHL experience. I don't want a guy in college. I don't want a guy in junior. I want somebody who has at least shown some glimpses of greatness, at least at the AHL level.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. I just think we already have so many wild cards in our current prospect pool that we need a little bit more of a sure thing. And I know there's not really a sure thing when it comes to prospects, but we have an opportunity to actually take a look at someone's resume at that level to bring them over. That's what you need to do.
Yeah. But when you're talking draft capital too, though, I mean, that's about as uncertain as it gets. So trying to fill these holes and fill this, trade out with Giroux going somewhere is bringing back somebody who's a bit more proven, whether it's at the AHL level, whether it's at, an overseas type of level. You're looking at, let's use, for example, you're looking at a guy like Alex Turcotte. He's got 18 points in 26 games in the AHL this year. Not bad, for a kid. Gabe Velarde, he's got 29 points in 28 games. Like, not bad. Something I wouldn't bat an eye at. But if we're talking actual AHL proven guys, Michael actually brings up a really good point. He wants to talk about the Canes. What are your thoughts on Jack Drury? Because everything I've read about this kid is that he's playing his way out of the AHL because he's playing with the Chicago Wolves right now, but there's really no room on the Canes roster because of how deep they are.
Well, then I'd have to worry about cap space and being able to fit in a guy like Giroux. I mean, I don't know what their cap number looks like, but is it even
0?
Oh. Well,
the Canes have no cap room, and I think you're right. I think Michael's point is fair. It's like the Canes are a team that has not been able to get over the hump since 2006 or whatever that was.
21, yeah.
And this is the year that they clearly have a really solid team and could probably use a Giroux, but they don't have any room. They barely they paid a goalie in magic beans basically, and so I don't know how they're going to pony up. And everything I heard is I don't know who their owner is, but he's just a total stinge master. And
So why don't we take an expiring deal? You've got Vincent Trocheck on the books for 4.75. You've got Nino Niederreiter on the books for 5.25.
Well, wouldn't you imagine though that these are people that they want to keep on the team to contend? I mean, I truly don't. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the issue that you're running into here, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these teams are not going to want to subtract from their current NHL roster. And then you look at these fringe teams like what we brought up with LA and Anaheim.
Sure.
Are they going to want to part with top prospects knowing that it's like, hey, we're going to bring Giroux here, but are we going to beat a Colorado? Are we going to beat a Florida or a Tampa Bay even with Giroux? And then we're out one piece of our future that really could make a difference.
Sure.
So I think this conversation's great, but I do think that there are some serious holes to what we're saying.
Well, think of it this way then. So you've got Trocheck, who typically plays center or wing. He's versatile, much like Giroux. Okay. He's making 4.75. So let's say the Flyers eat 50% of Giroux's deal. It almost equals out, not to the point where it would, completely equal out, and Carolina would have to still find a way to clear some cap, but it gets them a hell of a lot closer than taking on the entire 8.25,
Right. And what kind of numbers is Trocheck having this year? Like, what kind of impact does he have on this team? But that's my point.
If he's coming to the Flyers, like, what does it matter?
But it matters to the Canes.
But you're automatically getting an upgrade. Like, Giroux's better than Trocheck.
Sure, but you want to build off of what you already have. You know what? I just think, like, I get your reasoning. I do. But at the same time, I just feel like contenders are not looking to get rid of anybody who's having any sort of impact. They look at adding Giroux as, okay, we're already good. Now we're great.
We're one piece away, and this is the guy.
Right.
Here's my thing, too, is I think we're looking at this, and again, it's good conversation. But we're also looking at this in a Giroux blinders on kind of thing, not in the larger picture. With Giroux, realistically, I think we are going to get picks. I think we're going to get draft capital out of that because, as John said, if it goes to Minnesota or St. Louis, like they have everything except for one thing, and it could be as big as Giroux, and they're willing to give it up to go for that one shot because they know that realistically Giroux's only coming for 3 months or whatever however long the run is. I think where we make up the roster or borderline roster players is with Justin Braun, with some of the other guys that are out there that we are going to get rid of to maybe lesser contenders or just like different teams that are Braun won't make sense there, but other teams that are like looking for a change. I think that's where we're going to start seeing actual roster players and hockey trades happen for draft capital.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just surfing through Cap Friendly right now, looking at teams. I mean, Florida was another team that was mentioned where they have really no cap space.
Right.
LA has just under $1 million in cap space.
Right.
Can't fit Giroux under there for picks. Like, you're not going to be able to do it to Carolina. You're not going to be able to do it to a lot of these teams. We discussed New York. Like, they're the ones that probably have the most cap space and are in the best spot considering where their roster's at. That would be able to take on the entire cap hit. I mean, 6.3 is what they've got.
Sorry, who was that?
The Rangers. Now Nashville has Nashville has 10.5 million, so absolutely. But I mean, Anaheim's sitting there at 11, and then all the other teams right at the bottom that have the most cap space: Buffalo, Detroit, Columbus, Ottawa. None of them are going after Giroux.
Can I ask a stupid question?
If you want a stupid answer,
sure. So you're supposed to answer such thing as a stupid question.
I'm not a teacher,
but so. The cap hit, right? Is it still that 8 something? Even though
it's retroactive.
Okay, so what would it be with that much left in the season?
I think it's no, it's less than that because Giroux this year he's making 4, right? And I think he's making 5. $1 million of that is bonus, so I don't think that can go against it. I think the Flyers have to eat that.
True,
and so I think he ends up his cap hits 4. You separate that out, and you're at maybe like $1.5 million.
And you can eat 50%.
Well, no,
Right.
Giroux's cap hit is 8 point.
Right.
Or no,
I
his
think
base salary is 4 mil. His total salary is 5. But his cap hit obviously is 8.275.
Right. I think that no matter what they make.
Oh, no matter
Casey-
what. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I mean, it was a front-loaded deal in terms of salary. It was
Right.
5, then 9,999,57.2, and then 4. You know.
Got it.
Yeah. No,
But
good
the
thinking though.
The cap hit though you wouldn't be trading an $8 million cap hit
No.
to a team because I mean a lot of this season is going to be played by them.
Yeah. He plays 41 games. That's a $4.1 million cap hit. It's all kind of, you play X amount of percentage of the season so far. You're paying for the other half percentage of what you're getting.
So then the Flyers offer to eat half.
Why would
What's
they
that?
offer to eat any of it? I don't
Because
understand.
you get more back.
Yep. More of a return.
Got it.
Because it's for 1 year too. I mean, he's off the books after this season. So
Right.
what does that cap space matter if you're not going to be making a push for the playoffs?
Right.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah. I mean, all making
one other-
sense, but
One other team we haven't touched on that's, still in the Eastern Conference, who I do think could use them. I don't think they have a shot of a run, but I think they use them is Boston. And I think Boston may be looking at it. They have a really limited shelf life with this remaining core that they have.
Yeah.
And I think they know that. I think they need some defensemen pretty badly as well. But, that's a team that is, been outright vocal about saying they need a second line winger or second line center to help get things going. I don't think the Boston has a shot of really making a push if we're being honest here. But, I think they also know that the Bergeron-Marchand duo is probably going to end up fading away in the next 2 years. And so this may be the last time they really have a shot at solidified playoff.
But they're
never
also
count
probably
that team out though to either.
right.
Never
But
count
they're
them
also
out.
looking. They're probably looking at it and going, okay, as far as assets, right?
Mm-hmm.
To my understanding, their prospect pool is not very deep. I mean, you'd assume because they've been contenders, and they're going. Do we really want to trade away a first-round pick, considering that our years might
Where
be?
we're at.
Yeah.
Let's just ride this thing. And I hear you.
Now they do have a guy in Jake DeBrusk that has said he wants to be out of Boston again, but we're talking, wanting to add.
Didn't he say that at like the beginning of the season? Nothing's happened.
You're right.
I heard things have quelled a little bit there.
Yeah, well, winning solves everything. So
We wouldn't know.
no, it wouldn't. That's why we're all miserable.
A team that I really thought had a chance until they made a recent trade was Calgary.
Yep.
Until they traded for Tyler Toffoli, I thought that made a lot of sense, especially if they felt like they weren't going to be able to hold on to Johnny Gaudreau and they could possibly re-sign him.
Well, let's discuss the Toffoli trade because I mean that could essentially, lay
this
the
happen
foundation.
yesterday?
It was yesterday or the day before?
Monday.
Tuesday?
It was
2
Monday.
weeks ago, yeah.
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 Toffoli went to Calgary for a 2022 first round pick, top 10 protected. You've got a 5th round pick in 2023, Tyler Pitlick and Emil Heineman, who's a prospect that I guess kind of sealed the deal for him. They wanted Emil Heineman, from what I've understood, pretty bad. I think I was listening to that on High and Wide, but I can't remember. Or it might have been Snow the goalie. Regardless, it's a pretty hefty price to pay for Tyler Toffoli.
Term. He's got term on his contract.
Yeah.
3 years?
Yeah.
Something like that.
I think so, yeah. So it makes sense, in terms of having term on your contract. Yes, layman's terms. No, but I mean, is this deal in any way comparable to what we can expect to get for Claude Giroux?
No.
No, Hoagie. I didn't hear a no from you.
In terms of picks, maybe, but I mean, not everything like that.
Wow, you guys just ruined my night.
Well, I mean, the reality is, though, Derek, like, Tyler Toffoli's going to be on this team past this season, right? Like,
Is he, though?
I would assume if they're going to give up that much, then yes, they expect him to be a part of the team.
No, I know. I'm just busting.
And they're bringing them in so much earlier than the trade deadline. So
right.
He's getting ready with their systems, getting ready with the team so that they can gear for the playoffs. Like that was smart on Calgary's part.
Oh, yeah. It's got to set some sort of precedent, though. Like, this has got to lay in the slightest some type of foundation in which Chuck Fletcher, Claude Giroux, whoever the other GM is, looks at and says, okay, either A, you're Chuck Fletcher and you're saying this is what I want, or B, you're the opposing GM and you say this is what I can expect that they're going to want. You know what I mean?
I think if anything, it gets the ball rolling. I mean, I was listening to Sirius XM and Brad Treliving, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, the GM of Calgary, was on there, and he was just like, the closer you get to the trade deadline, right, you're going to have to pay more because you have all these competing GMs going after it. So we identified our guy and we went out and got him. We didn't want to mess around. So if anything, right, maybe a few other teams start to take that approach where it's like, okay, we don't want to wind up in a bidding war. Let's get the ball moving now.
Yeah, the first domino has essentially fallen when it comes to trades in the NHL leading up to the deadline. I really, and this is maybe just looking too far ahead, I really just don't want this to turn into what it turned into a few years back when we held on to we held on to Wayne Simmons for too long and ended up getting Ryan Hartman?
Fourth round pick and Ryan Hartman.
Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, he's doing pretty well right now. But
I'd
it's like
kill for Ryan Hartman right now,
right?
Yeah, and we get Tyler Pitlick
Man,
coming.
Screw you guys, because I said it like 5 weeks ago, and y'all threw me under the bus.
That's just what we do, Hoagie.
I hate
We're here to throw you under the bus. But no, again, looking back, it's like, oh man, we could have kept Ryan Hartman, but would Ryan Hartman have done this in Philadelphia? Probably not.
Probably not. No.
But we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot. Like I just get Jim brought it up in our group chat for High and Wide. I just get the feeling that no matter the return, we're going to be angry. We're going to be just let down by the fact that we didn't get what we wanted, or that fans, we didn't get what we wanted.
And I think back to this, like, I think it's going to be realistic that it's not going to be a player for player. So there's no way it's going to be like a notable player for player. It's just not that kind of deal. And also, like, going back to the Simmons thing, put that in perspective. That was the day after, not the Winter Classic, but whatever the hell
the
Stadium
Series,
which was like this time. I was like this time of year. It was mid-February. So like we're coming up on it. And if you also think about like a lot of the true trade deadlines, the week of or a few days before, do we really think that's going to be like the marquee moving days? I don't know. I always find those are like the third line filler guys that you think can kind of help you get over the hump there. But I don't know. I don't believe one bit of what we've heard from the Avalanche front, and that Giroux has only waived his clause for the Avalanche only, and like I don't buy it. No. I think that if anything, maybe it's agent posturing, maybe it's who knows what the motive is, but I guarantee that nobody has any idea where he's actually going to end up. If it ends up being Avalanche, then I'll say I'm sorry and I'm an idiot. But I'll put money that it's not the Avalanche.
I don't think he's going to come out. I don't think anybody's going to come out and know with any certainty. Like that's just not the type of guy Giroux is. Plays everything pretty close to the vest. I just don't see him coming out at any point or any type of information that would be checked and vetted and made sure that it was completely true, saying, oh, Giroux would only waive his no movement clause for insert team here.
The more I think about it, the more I like the idea of him going to St. Louis. Like, I think that's a...
Could you imagine him winning a cup with Braden Shen and Craig Berube? Hi, let me turn this dagger just a little bit more.
Just shoot me.
The only thing worse.
Mike Richards comes back.
Oh, stop!
Just shut up. Shut up now.
Let me pose this question to you guys: will you be angry if he doesn't get traded? If he doesn't get traded at all?
Yes.
Yep.
I won't say angry. I'd be definitely disappointed.
Even if he resigns?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Because you still have a chance to, and again, this is me just being, eternal optimist here. You have a chance to help your team build for the future with the mindset of having to go back for that future. So why not go there for a couple months, do your thing, see if you can win a cup, And if your plan is to come back, help the team out on the way out.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that's the dream scenario if we're being honest here. It's like,
Right.
okay, Giroux falls on the sword, says this is what's best for the team, and then resigns back with the Flyers. Is it realistic? It's a long shot, but the fact that our guest last week, Jim Jackson, brought that up, we didn't even entice that out of him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he brought that up and said, Claude wants to be here.
Right.
Yeah.
So what does the future really look like? Couturier and his back brace are on a friendly deal. Could Giroux sign for a friendly deal? Maybe. I'm not holding my breath, but like it's nice to think about.
I don't see him signing for anything under like $5-6 million.
Yeah, I mean, listen,
Depending on
this is an unpopular opinion, I'm sure, but I really don't want him back. And it's not a knock on the player at all, but we keep preaching this changing of the guard. We've got to change this. You go and you bring Claude Giroux back. What is that signaling? Now, maybe it puts us in a worse situation, but we can't keep preaching that there needs to be a change. And you have an opportunity to essentially make the biggest statement of change by parting ways with your captain, and we hold on to him. Now, I know that the trade is his choice. He can decide to not move it. But I feel like regardless, the Flyers need to move on from him.
Now, if we're changing the guard, though, in form of a Giroux trade, what guard is in place that you're confident can lead this team forward?
I'm going to take the Jim Jackson route, and I'm going to say that I'm not ready to answer that question until the offseason shows up and we have a better idea. But it's true.
You already know my answer.
Okay, Hoagie. Okay.
He had a good game last night. He had a good game.
Gotta
But
give it to him.
the first step is breaking up with your girlfriend, and then you go out and find the new one. Unless you're like, Hoagie, that dog.
You gotta have prospects, though. Hey.
I also wouldn't be shocked to see either Provorov or Sanheim moved. If not at the trade deadline, then in the offseason. One of those two is gone.
No,
I think
if they
Konechny's
move,
in the same
carry.
boat. I think Konechny's in the same boat. I think that he's gone. I do.
if they get rid of Ristolainen, which is another discussion for another time here. Anthony Sanfilippo wrote about it on Crossing Broad about apparently some deal in place about a 5-year, $30 million, about $6 million a year, and he turned down. Thinks that he can thrive in the playoffs, which hey, we don't know because we haven't seen him in the playoffs.
Right.
Nobody
has.
Well, that would give. I don't want Sanheim traded in that case if Risto does decide to go elsewhere. I want to see him thrive without Ristolainen. I want to see Travis Sanheim thrive without Rasmus Ristolainen next to him, so that we can all endure the "I told you so"s, the people on their pedestals.
That's gonna happen.
But
it's a joke. It's a joke. But the numbers.
I mean, Sanheim to me is an off-season deal. I think like those guys would get traded in the off-season anyway. But it's like step one is parting with some of these people, right? And then you deal with the rest of it in the off-season.
Sure. I'll stick with this, and I know I've been preaching it for a month now, but it's we're still in year one of the 3-year rebuild, and we're going into year 2 at this point, starting with this trade deadline. And we dropped Voracek last year, and we got rid of a handful of others, but it's now just they're in the process of changing the core. I don't think anybody anticipated the fact that 5 members of this perceived future core would be on the long-term injured reserve list, but such is life.
Oh yeah,
right.
This is life as a Flyers fan. This is absolutely life as a Flyers fan. Now, go ahead. I'm sorry,
John. Back to your original thing with Giroux. Like, I would still like to have Giroux back, but it would have to be a severe hometown discount, like enough to bring in somebody that can
like $4 million range.
That's what I was thinking. Like, what is he? He's 34 right now.
Yeah.
Like, you do 3 years at $4 million.
Yep.
You got to sign him for less than what he's making now. Absolutely. Hometown discount. If he really loves Philadelphia, like everybody is saying he does, which I don't dispute. I think he does. I think his family loves it here. and that weighs heavily on a guy. You gotta almost play to that when you're Chuck Fletcher or whoever the GM is going to be if they decide to move on from him. You have to say, you love Philly, that's fine. This is what we have to offer you, and this is the highest we're going to go. If he says no,
Danny Briere will do it.
Oh, Danny, I'm sure will have some type of sway. I know they've got a good relationship,
absolutely.
but I mean,
They lived together for God's sakes. Drew lived in his garage as a rookie.
He was
Briere posted a picture of him
son.
after he was named assistant GM.
President Special Assistant to the GM. Get your titles right.
Specialist, the Dwight Schrute of the Flyers.
Dwight Schrute.
Only the
Waiting out
Flyers.
his card.
Right, whiting out the assistant. Oh, Lord. All right, well, we made the executive decision here. We had another topic that we wanted to get to. We're going to get to it next week. We really want to dive in deep about where this team's going to end up finishing, the chances about the draft lottery, things like that. All stuff that we have to look forward to when it comes to the offseason, folks.
There's still so much of this season left. It's crazy.
It's sad.
We're just looking. We're just looking for the greens right now.
What we have? What 2 months left? Right? Because
We're gonna run out of what to talk about.
The end of the season stops at like April 10th or something like that, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Like we got some time, man.
Oh man! After the trade deadline, it's going to turn into the John Gove show. Like, John, tell us about the prospects in the draft.
Right.
I'm a little rusty in that now too, man.
He's
Better
all
shake that
excited,
rust
though.
off.
I was excited because I just was wondering what I could do with the John Gove show.
I saw the
eyes
ears
like
perked, and I'm like, I know this. I'm not cutting that intro. I'm not cutting that intro. But no, it's I'm sure there's plenty more to touch on in regards to that. But at the point now, it's like, what more is there to discuss about?
Can I make one more? Can I make one more just note about Colorado?
If I say no, are you going to do it anyway?
Yes.
Yes.
So go ahead.
Joe Sakic is notoriously a very patient general manager. He is somebody who is just going to wait and wait until he gets what he wants. So it's
I don't really follow the Colorado Avalanche.
Well, I mean, but I listen to
You don't have to follow him to know what Joe Sakic.
Oh, stop
Right.
sticking up for John. Shut up, Hoagie.
Thank you, Hoagie. But
The one
just,
time you had his back, and it's against me.
But I just think and I think Casey, was this you? And I might be wrong, but more and more I just don't want Colorado because I don't think the return is going to be good at all.
No.
They don't need. They are going to make a run without
Right.
Giroux.
And I don't think they have a first round
beat in the
pick in this
second round.
draft
They
either.
probably don't.
I really think I don't think they have a first round pick in this draft. I could be wrong here. But if that's the case, then we shouldn't even be having this conversation.
Well, let's take a look because right now they're without actually a first and second and fourth round pick this draft. Oh God!
Right?
So- That's
got
why
their first
everybody's
round
so
pick in
invested
2023,
into
though.
New Hook.
Right.
That's why everybody's
They'll
invested
never
in
part with a
Hook
New
and
Hook, though.
No.
Exactly.
And that sucks.
If the Flyers are able to get one guy who has been shaky but still has a lot of upside, I could see like a Bowen Byram being involved in this. I know, Casey. I'm sorry, buddy. But like there's not much there that makes me too excited. And there's no draft capital. I mean, do we want a 2023 first round pick? Is that going to make us happy? I mean, it's better than nothing, but
Better than a first round pick in this year's draft, right?
it's still going to be in the high 20s.
Oh yeah,
Right.
that
still
Colorado
has
team
value,
isn't
though.
going
A
anywhere.
2023 first round pick still has value.
Sure.
Like, I'd rather put that through the coin machine and turn that into a roster player through
Just wash it.
another trade. Yeah, just
Wash it in one of your
Rinse,
shell
wash,
companies.
repeat.
Yeah.
Rinse and repeat.
Yep.
All right.
All right, fellas, it's been a blast discussing nothing but Claude Giroux for the past hour. But
I'm
Yep.
depressed. I could really use a joke.
I could too. Hoagie, lift our spirits. Let's go.
Hoagie, lift your shirt up. Give us a joke.
Come on, Mr. Squirt.
Oh boy. What do you call 100 little sheep rolling down a hill?
100 little
landslide.
It's like that Fleetwood Mac song.
Well, she sounds like a sheep.
Of changing, but I built my life around
I teed him up and he went for it.
Time.
Dear God, make me a bird so I can fly far, far, far away from here. Far away.
All
I
right,
think
well,
the Dixie Chicks did that song too. I think they're just called the Chicks now.
They're the chicks now. Get it right.
Yeah.
the
No
chicks,
PC.
Sorry.
what a shame. Anyways, so Hoagie, after your dad joke there, follow up with where they're going to be able to find you.
Oh, the Twitter thing.
Scott Lawton content.
I love Scott Lawton. I have a poster of him in my bedroom. I look at him every night before I go to bed, and I kiss it and say good night.
I call him Mrs. Squirt.
Hoagie, hurry.
Pod Street Hoax.
Matt Casey.
Todd Street Casey's. ASDY on Twitter.
All right, John Gove, give your spiel.
You can find this podcast on your various podcast listening receptacles, including, but not only limited to, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Spreaker, Stitcher, Deezer, Weezer, Neezer, Pleaser, YouTube,
Squirtcast.
Squirtcast, Mrs. Squirtcast,
Ms. Squirt.
Lady Squirtcast.
Oh dear Lord.
Anyway,
Out of hand here. All right.
I love that Hoagie's family's listening to this. It's so good.
No, not anymore.
Yep.
Oh, no, you can find me on Twitter at
family.
Pod Street Bob. You can find John on Twitter, Pod Street Gove. All four of us are on Twitter, Pod ST Bullies. Check out our affiliates, 5 Minute Major, Flyers High and Wide. And until next week, folks, let's all try to survive through another week of Flyers hockey.
Bye
We
now.
only have one game.
But one too many.
Yeah.